Today I'm going to be showing you guys 6 tips for successful blackberry gardening. Stay tuned. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. My name's Tracy and we grow 5 80-foot rows of blackberries, and today I wanted to share with you 6 tips that you can be successful blackberry gardeners. It's springtime right now, things are just budding out, and the first thing that you need to make sure that your rows have is what we call out with the old. So that means getting rid of the old last year's blackberry canes.
You can tell which plants need to be cut down by the color of them. This one here is like a grayish brown, where this plant is more of a reddish brown, and that plant will stay. And you can also tell because of the buds that are on here, they're budding out, ready to go for spring, whereas the plant that needs to come down doesn't have any growth on it at all. We like to use these long-handed loppers. It makes really easy work for the old thick canes. Another reason you want to get rid of your old plants is because they attract cane borer beetles, and you don't want those because if they come around, they're going to affect your new plants, and they're not going to want that to happen.
The second tip that I'm going to tell you about is to prune your blackberries. You want your old blackberry shoots, last year's shoots that are going to be producing this year, you want them no more than 5 foot. We like ours to be somewhere in that 4 to 5 foot range, and that way a few reasons. One, it's not putting too much energy into growing leaves, although you do need leaves to get that sun's energy into making those flowers, which will in turn make those berries. But if you have too much plant, it's just going to put too much energy into vegetation production. Second is, if you have a 6 or 7 foot tall plant, you're more than likely going to encounter wind sometimes, and where we're at is up on top of a little hill here, and of course with strong winds and a 6 to 7 foot tall blackberry plant, it can be knocked over quite easily.
As you can see here, we've already pruned these plants. The main stalk is about 5 feet high, and the laterals coming off the side here are about 18 to 20 inches. Another good reason to cut these is because they're hanging over the rows, so when you're trying to mow, they just get in the way.
The third tip that we're going to give you is transplanting blackberries. So you're going to be getting new shoots pop up in and out of your row in that springtime season. In the row, that's great. Out of the row, not so good. You could do a few things with those. You can put ads on Craigslist. You could sell them. We like to sell ours for $4 a piece, and they tend to sell decently good. The second thing is, you could, if you have the room back in your blackberry rows, especially if it's a new row, not too much of a mature row, you could always transplant those that are outside of the row back into the row, and that will make your rows mature quite faster. And then the third thing that you can do is you could just mow them over, and a lot of times I have a really hard time with doing that because you think, wow, I really have a passion for growing these blackberries and I hate to see them get mowed over. It's just much easier to mow your rows with those blackberry plants transplanted back into the row or mowed down.
As you can see here, there are 2 plants right here that are growing out of the blackberry rows, so these are going to be the ones that we're either going to transplant, sell, or mow over.
The fourth tip that we're going to give you, a very important thing, is strawing your rows, because you want to mulch your rows, whether that's wood chips, which we don't really recommend wood chips because your new shoots don't pop up through them as easy. What we like to use is a straw that's a material derived from the wheat around our area, and as long as it's a seasoned straw bale, which just, you know, if you get some straw bales from a farmer in the fall time, just let them overwinter outdoors instead of keeping them inside. That way they get rained and snowed on, and chances are those seeds, if there's any seeds inside those straw plants, they'll just die right off. So anyways, you're going to want to take that straw and make a nice bedding over your blackberry rows, and that's going to do a few things. One, it's going to retain that moisture in the ground. It's not going to let them dry up, because if you just water your plants and you don't have any coverage on that dirt, it's just going to dry right up. So that's why we really like to put a straw bedding right over our blackberry rows. And then the other thing is, it's going to also keep that grass and those weeds at bay a little bit more. And we like to, put that no more than a foot. You don't want just a little bit on there because that'll help out a little bit, but your weeds are really going to grow right through that. So we know people that put up to a foot of straw on their blackberry plants, and really as much as it rains, that straw is going to be getting compacted anyway.
You want to lay the straw on pretty thick, but you don't want it compressed like it is in the bales.
The fifth tip that we're actually going to give you is trellising. Now there's different types of plants, different types of blackberry plants, which is going to result in different types of trellising. And we have what's called a semi-erect blackberry plant or an erect blackberry plant. And honestly, if you keep them around 3 foot tall and you have a good blackberry row that's real mature and established, you don't have to trellis them.
This row here you can see is our newest row, and it's not been trellised yet. We put this in last year.
We like to get ours a little bit taller to that 4 to 5 foot range, and there is sometimes that we don't stay on top of pruning, and you know, we do encounter that 7 foot tall plant, and before we can get out of here, those trellises will help keep those plants from getting knocked over. For the erect and semi-erect blackberries, what we like to do is do a 2-post, 2-wire trellis system. And so that's going to be, as you can see here, we have 2 T-posts on each side. 2 foot apart is going to be about the sweet spot that we found. And then at that point, you're going to drive those into about 4 to 4.5 foot tall. And then we're going to take, we use just some galvanized wire or some electric fence wire and stretch those at the top of the fence all the way down. And then at the about halfway mark, we also do the same. The other type of blackberry plants that you're going to encounter is a vining style, and where really it's just going to be a really long vine, and some of those can get 7-8 foot long, but they're not going to stand up on their own once they get past 2 or 3 feet. And you really need to trellis them up. And what we like to do with those, even though we personally don't grow them, is you're going to do a 1 T-post system right down through the middle of the row, and then you're going to put some cattle panels, and those cattle panels are going to be somewhere around 4 foot tall, and you're just going to put a cattle panel down that T-post row right along in with your rows. And then you can just either weave them in and out of the T-post as they grow, or you could take some string or maybe even some zip ties. Be sure to just get those vining blackberry plants attached to that trellis system so they too can not have to grow on the ground. The 6th and final tip that we're going to give you today is irrigation. Whenever we started blackberry gardening, the first thing that we did was we would come out here and we'd sit out here for an hour watering with the hose and a sprayer. Eventually we came across a Chapman product and a drip tape, and we run that down every blackberry row. Now we put ours on top of the straw bedding, and that way it's just laying on there, and if there's ever any issues, we can replace either that whole 80-foot section, because our rows are 80 foot long, so we could replace that whole section or just section in a little piece, because sometimes you do have an animal come along and see that water coming out of there, and they'll say, oh, we've got something to drink here, and what they'll do is they'll bite that irrigation hose, and then you've got water spraying everywhere. So you want to know if you've got water problems coming out of your irrigation hose, and that's why we like to lay that on top.
This drip tape is a nice time saver, and it's super efficient with water. It just drips into the ground, so you're not using a lot of water at a time, and it helps soak it in much better than using a whole bunch of water at one time.
Hey guys, we really appreciate you watching the video. I hope you learned something. Share this video if you think that it will help others. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, I do encourage you to do so. And until next time, we'll see you on the next video.
And action.
You woke up my nose.
Okay.